Greetings, y'all. Welcome back to the channel, Beautiful, Powerful Love. My name is Barbara Ohuninifa. Today, this video is going to be a little different because I'm kind of free forming. It's been on my spirit to talk about my brother, to tell his story, to uplift him, to venerate him. And it's the month of October, so he was born in October. And so there's a lot of things, a lot of reasons why I needed to have this conversation with y'all. So it's not going to be quite typical, and I might get a little rambly because this is spirit led, spirit driven, real time right now. I had not planned on making this today or anytime soon, but this is when it's happening. Um, so just as an introduction, if you are new to this channel, Beautiful, Powerful Love is a space where I, as an author, a coach, a speaker, an ancestral strategist, I work with Black women to help us remember that we are beautiful, recognize that we are powerful, and to be loved, to be the love that we need to pour and fill ourselves up with, and let others feast off of that overflow rather than depleting ourselves, giving away our value, our essence, or really looking for others to validate us. So that's a lot of the work that I do on this channel and my books and my courses and all the things. And so today is just real time ancestral veneration, my brother, Bobby Charles Williams. And it's timely, and I understand why I need to speak about this now, and you will too as I get into it. Well, you can tell from the title why we're talking about this now. But I initially posted something about this a few years ago. Let's see, it was in 22, September, whoa, it was 9/11, 2022. That was an interesting date. But I posted a little bit about that, and then, life was life and has been life. And I still don't have answers, but we just gonna talk it out and talk it through because that's what's more important is to share what I have to share and as it comes through and whatever spirit has to share. And I will say before I even came to do this recording, obviously it's been strong on me to do it. But I checked in with ancestors, got permission, poured the libation, did the prayers, did all the things to open the way to make sure that my people are here with me and that this is something that they support as well. Yes, yes. Okay, let me get into it because I'm going to just start zoning out. I'm going to share my screen because there's things that I want to show y'all as I talk about it. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Let's see. That's why I'm telling y'all this ain't polished how I usually try to do something. So you just about to see my Word doc where I just been collecting things. So that is my brother. I don't know how old he was on this picture, um, but Bobby Charles Williams is his name. And I just brought this up. Y'all see that? It was not until I was today years old that I really realized how much like him that I look. That little nose and all the things. I was like, Bobby looked different, but he was a child and so was I. I had the same, just, just amazing to me. But I'm 53 years old, and it's the first time I've looked at us side by side and said, oh, I see my brother in my face and I see my face in my brother. So, and I give thanks for that. So I'm just close it out because this ain't about me, it's about him. So he was, let me just go to his memorial service. Obviously, he passed away. I got his obituary. You know how Black families, we have them, those obituaries, those funeral programs, and this was his. His funeral was July 8th. What is that? 1969. Now, I was born at the end of 71, so it wasn't even 2 years later that my mother was pregnant with me. And then, what, a little over more than 2 years when she actually gave birth to me. And this is why I say in all of the, and not all of, but in previous videos that I was steeped in grief. My mother lost her only son and was carrying me while she's still grieving the loss of her only son, and they were close. They were close. So that was his program. But I want to share a little bit more. Bobby Charles Williams, he was born October 25th, 1957. And in doing his numerology, he was he had a lot of threes. So that creativity, that spontaneity, that ability to create and write or just do all of these things in the creative realm, that was a part of what he came here with and what his life path was about. But he also had a lot of one energy and 11 energy. So he himself was in tuned. He himself was a pioneer. And when I look and understand what he did in his sacrifice, we give thanks, Bobby Charles Williams, for your sacrifice, for your love, for your light, for your protection. I give thanks. Our whole family gives thanks for you and to you. That pioneering, even in his death, he pioneered for us. So I want to thank you for that, Bobby. I want to thank you. So he was born in Toledo, Ohio. So my oldest sister was born in Mississippi. And as they migrated, they had him in Ohio, and all the rest of us were born in Chicago. So that's how that works. It was moving on up the chain, moving on up the line, getting the hell up out the South, but apparently not far enough. And so you can see he was in elementary school. He went to, I don't care about that address. We don't live there anymore, or have that house anymore, unfortunately. And he passed away on the 4th of July, 1969. Now, I kind of grew up, I mean, obviously I knew my brother. I didn't know my brother, but I knew about his death. But it never really clicked. Every 4th of July, as people shooting off fireworks, celebrating, barbecuing, doing all the things, this is when they lost their son. This is when my sisters lost their brother. This is when I lost my brother, but I wasn't even here yet. And how horrible that is. And I mentioned this, I talked about the story of what happened in my book, and I'll give a little bit of it here. But they went away on a family camping trip, as you will see here, Hickory Hills Camping Ground in Knox, Indiana. We're gonna go take a look at Knox, Indiana, and the Hickory Hills Camping Ground. So this is why having these obituaries and these funeral programs and keeping them, and I give thanks to my cousin for doing that, is so important because it gives details that eventually get lost in the family lore. But they went to celebrate Independence Day, 4th of July, and came back without a child, without their brother, without their son. And he was in 7th grade, very active youngster, a member of the Jackie Robinson Little League Baseball. He was playing right field for the team. He was a track star. He had recently won first place in the 75-yard dash and second place in the relay race. He was in the Boy Scouts. Now he was a Boy Scout, and my mother was very active. She was a den mother. They got dressed in I'm talking like I was actually there, but I've heard stories from my oldest sister. But that was their activity. That's what they did. And he did a lot of arts and crafts. In fact, it's coming back to me a few years ago, I was led to create a little drum, like basically go to the arts and crafts store and make a little drum and paint it. And it wasn't actually a drum, it was a little container, but I painted it and designed it and decorated it like a drum. But inside of it is like maybe I'll put a message to him or a piece of candy. I was moved to create that and have it on my ancestor altar. That was for him. So he would always have and I didn't know he had all of these threes in his numerology chart at the time. But even doing that, going to the arts and crafts store, making it, creating it, painting it, and doing all the things, that was him working with me, through me, telling me what was needed for him to enjoy on the other side. But I digress. And so yes, and then he was also a member of the church. They always had to have that as a part of the story, and it's true. Um, Before I go further, I do want to say there in the service there was a prayer that they said, and I want to say that. And it's so interesting how they have it laid out, the call and response, which is a part of our culture, which is a part of who we are as African people or African descended people, because we are African and more. But African is the root, and I don't denigrate that in any way, but I just want to acknowledge, because we and much of our lineage is was actually born, raised, enslaved, worked, toiled, and all the things in North America, in this country. I want to acknowledge them as well by not skipping over them. Anyway, the call and response is part of our culture. So it's interesting that his program actually has it laid out in that way, where the pastor would say, "The Lord be with you," and the people would say, "And with thy spirit." And then the pastor would say, "Let us pray." And together, "O God, giver and preserver of all life, Lord of all history, Father of all children, comfort us who mourn, and give us grace and hope in this hour of need. Help us to put our whole trust in thy goodness through Christ our Lord. Amen. 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 The pain that my family endured losing Bobby, this prayer did what it could to cover, but my God, I couldn't imagine. So I wanted to say that. It's interesting, the Psalms are there. I'm gonna go back and look at those Psalms. I know Psalm 23 of that one very well. Now I also understand my mother would say that every time it was time to do some prayers at the dinner table, Christmas, holidays, whatever. We didn't say grace at every meal, but the big holidays we did, and Psalm 23 was always the one. Okay, full circle. We're just doing the things now. We're just gonna learn some things. And this is a picture of my father with Bobby. I'm not sure. I used to know who he was. He's not a relative, but now I don't. And these are three, my sisters, and that was Bobby. And that was Bobby again with two of my sisters. What it must have been like for him having all these girls around. Probably was kind of annoying. But, when you look at how he rolled, that stoic look, that stoic vibe, is how Black men, the same thing was with my father. It wasn't until recently that my father would smile for a picture. You just look like this on pictures when back in the day, and that was what he was taught to do. And you can see that's how he was rolling, straight face, getting it in. And that was him in his was it Roy Rogers outfit? He's a little cowboy hat, has a little rifle. I guess this was a birthday party or something. But he was a kid. He had fun. He was a kid doing all kinds of active things. So I'll tell a little bit of the story before I get into further, just to get those up to date who have not read the book. But my family went on a vacation to a campground. I'm from Chicago. We lived in Chicago, and they went to a campground in Indiana for the holiday. My oldest sister and my brother were out and about. They were, 13 and 12 years old. They could go and walk around and do things together, and go walk and do stuff. Enjoy the environment, if you will. And my parents, and this is the stories that I've heard, my parents were getting ready to go and meet them, but they had my other two sisters, they had to get them ready to get out the door and all the things. While my sister and my brother, my oldest sister and my brother were at that. She describes it as a pond. She said it wasn't like a lake, it wasn't really big, it was almost like a man-made something they scooped out. And they were swimming, there was people, there was families all around, and she said one little girl wanted to show her some dolls, and basically was convincing her to come with her to go so she could show her dolls. And to this day, she feels like she was lured away, so my brother would be alone. And when my parents came looking, and my sister came back, they couldn't find him. and they searched, authorities came and they searched all the things, and they eventually, and of course, I don't know details how they got to this point, but they dredged the pond, and that's when they found him at the bottom of the pond, had drowned, and his body was just covered in mud, and they just hoisted him up. And I mentioned this in the book, like what that must have felt like for my parents and my sisters to see their brother, their son, in that way. And even though he wasn't hanging from a tree, it was the same feeling, the same experience in many ways. And so they went home without their son. They went home without him alive. They went home with his body. Yeah, this is not going to be the same kind of video y'all usually get. And so I started this in the pandemic. That's why I made that post back in 2022, because, the pandemic sent us all in. At least it sent me in. And I started really trying to understand, as I've always talk about, the karmic patterns, the karmic path that I'm on. I came as a result of my brother being unalived. And I say that because they were done having kids, but they wanted to have another child to give homage to him, I guess. So the same year that I was born is also the year that my parents started their business, and it was named Bobby's. It was Bobby's A-OK Grill. It was Bobby's Beauty Supply. It was Bobby's Barbershop. Three different storefronts with Bobby's name everywhere. And then they had a child named Barbara, Barbara C. Williams, so that I would have the same initials as Bobby C. Williams. They probably would have named me Charlene if they had could have. I'm surprised they didn't. So I dug into to find out more, and then so let's talk about this Hickory Hills first. Now I will say this Hickory Hills campground where he died is still in existence. When I go to understand more, it looks like that they have new owners. I don't know what happened between now and then. There's another Hickory Hills campground in another part of Indiana that actually opened up, mm, like 4 years after my brother passed away, but it's in a different area. This Hickory Hills campground, as you could see from his obituary, Hickory Hills campground in Knox, Indiana. And so I came on over here and look at the campground, looking at photos, and I wanted to understand what this place looked like. Like what was really going on there. And so I started to look at some of the pictures. And let's see if I can find it here. I'm telling y'all going through this with me. There was so there's a lake, but I got the sense from my sister that it was not this big. So I kept scrolling. Let's see if I can find it here. It's still a pretty big lake. Mm, and all of this is just on Google. You posted it on Google, that's where it is. There's another picture of a lake. So you can see everybody has on life vests now. But again, that is not the image. And of course, now that I'm on here, now I can't even find it. We're going to keep looking now. Mm, mm-hmm. Or maybe the point is I'm not supposed to share and see that pond. The point is I found a picture of what they called in the pit in the on the photos the back pond, which is really interesting to me. And when I looked at that, I said, "Oh, yeah, that was it." Hmm. Yeah, I guess y'all don't get to see that today. I'm so curious though. All right, received. We're not seeing the actual pond where it took place, but the point is There is a lake where they do most of their activities and fun things now, and there is a pond that, as you if you could see the picture, if I could find the picture, it is kind of surrounded by trees. It I could tell that that was the scene of the situation. Now again, this is a different owner, and I lay no, they there was a settlement, lay no claim to any issues with this particular campground, but for me, it's important to see and understand. So now we're in Knox, Indiana, at Hickory Hills Campground. I've already heard from my family that they were the only Black family at that campground. And the Ku Klux Klan rose to prominence in Indiana politics and society after World War I. It was made up of native born white Protestants of many income and social levels. In the changing world of the 1920s, the group was against Catholics, Jews, African Americans, immorality, and drinking. Sounds familiar, right? Nationally, Indiana was said to have the most powerful Ku Klux Klan, though it counted a high number of members statewide. Its importance peaked in the 1924 election of Edward Jackson for governor. A short time later, the scandal that surrounded D.C. Stevenson destroyed the image of the Ku Klux Klan as upholders of law and order. It was always a lie that they upheld law and order, but you know how propaganda will tell a story. 1926, by 1926, the Ku Klux Klan was crippled and discredited. Later efforts to revive the Ku Klux Klan in the 1960s and 70s were attempted, but its message was not received in large numbers as it had been 40 years previously. So understand this, we're in an area where the Ku Klux Klan was active. It was known for it, had one of the biggest, most involved, um, I want to call them congregations, but groups. But then there was a scandal. They lost numbers, they lost reputation, they didn't want to be associated with it anymore. But then they tried to revive it during the 60s and 70s, which is when my parents, my family, my brother was there in Knox, Indiana. But wasn't received, but it doesn't mean it wasn't there. It doesn't mean that there weren't people who were trying to prove that they were Ku Klux Klan material or were just period active. They just didn't have as many numbers as they had before. And to be clear, let me go back a bit. Klansmen walking in Knox, Indiana. Knox, Indiana. Again, this is where the campground was. So I'm going to bring this up larger so you can see. I don't even know how far back that goes. So they're marching, walking in the street in broad daylight in Knox, Indiana. It's not clear what year this is, but you could assume by looking at the quality of the picture that it was in that same time period. There's a backside to it, and you know, thank goodness for the Indiana Library collection. And it doesn't matter, they can take this off now. I've already saved it, but I can't really tell. They're walking in front of some governor's household, but the year is question mark. So they have this picture in archive, but they don't know what year it is. But they know it's the Ku Klux Klan. And as we just stated, it was prominent in Indiana politics and society. It wasn't it wasn't a fringe organization. It was prominent and integrated into Indiana. And we know specifically in Knox, Indiana, from the photograph. Okay. And I love this. And of course, I have all of this too, because there is plenty of receipts about the Ku Klux Klan in Indiana with plenty of books and printed materials. Just look at all of this. Just look at this. This is what they're trying to take away and erase so they can pretend it didn't happen. And look at this, white Protestant nationalism in the 1920s, Ku Klux Klan in Indiana. So much has been written, so much has been documented about their activities. But let me go back up here when we're talking about, because I'll be going down rabbit holes. When we talk about the scandal of DC Stevenson destroying the image, okay, simple Google. Scandal surrounded DC Stevenson. The scandal surrounding DC Stevenson, I want y'all to, I probably should have said this at the beginning, trigger alert, because I'm talking about horrific things, but also the hope and the resiliency within it. What this man did is just a microcosm, just a not even a tip of the iceberg of what they were doing and what we're seeing still happening. This is the America they want back. But at least back then they had some decorum. Let me just read this to you. The scandal surrounding DC Stevenson involved the 1925 kidnapping, vicious rape, and murder of Madge Obenholzer, which led, I'm pausing because I'm like, did I say her name right? And you know what? We uplift her too. She was a white woman, but no one, I mean, and I say that because of other Karens that have made it where it's hard to have sympathy for white women, but we rise up above that. No one deserves to have happened what happened to her. And I don't even know her character or anything else of who she was. So we lift her up too because she died. She died in a horrible way, but she got justice. So I give thanks to Madge Oberholzer for the courage that she had. So, all right, let me tell the story. He kidnapped, vicious rape, and murder, which led to his conviction and eventually the collapse of the Ku Klux Klan. Well, they say collapse. What it is that they went underground and they couldn't be as publicly accepting of it as they had been. So at the time, DC Stevenson was the Grand Dragon. These names, the Grand Dragon of the Indiana Klan, and he had immense wealth and political control. And he summarized it by saying, I am the law in Indiana. Again, doesn't that sound familiar? Of people feeling like they are the law. So now, yes, I am reading an AR summary, but here are all of the receipts along the side, and we can dig in and go into them. We're just trying to get the highlights now. So if AI summary got some details of it wrong, go deeper. But we just gonna read these summaries right now. So key events of the scandal. In March 1925, he abducted this 28-year-old woman. She was a state education official. So, I mean, not does it matter that it matters, but she was involved. She was in the political realm, a state education. I mean, to the extent that they would let women be involved, even then, she was a state education official. Now, what that means exactly, was she a teacher? I don't know. I haven't dug deeper. But he took her on a private train car. Where the hell did he get a private train car? Who else was complicit in this? During the trip, he brutally raped and tortured her, inflicting numerous bite marks on her body. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Now, mind you, these are people who said that what was it that they upheld? They were against Catholics, Jews, African Americans, immorality, and drinking. And yet their grand wizard kidnapped a woman, held her hostage, brutally raped her, and bit her, breaking skin all over her body. But they upholded morality and got problems with everybody else. So brutally raped and tortured her, numerous bite marks. Now while she was held captive, she swallowed a box of mercury bichloride tablets to try to end herself because she didn't know how long this was going to go. And I could only imagine what was done. So after discovering her poisoning, he refused to get medical attention. Instead, he drug her back to Indianapolis. And she was treated when she got home, but a combination of the mercury poisoning and the staph infection from all the bite wounds caused her to die about a month later. So, in her dying declaration before she died, she dictated and signed a detailed dying declaration describing the abduction and the assault, and that testimony became the crucial evidence used to convict him. on her deathbed. She knew she was going out. She knew, and obviously welcomed it because part of it was from the mercury poisoning from what she took. But because she took that poison, and he at that point had no more use for her, and we are thankful that he didn't just unalive her then. She was able to use her voice, use her words, use the power of her truth to get his ass from the grave. Trial and conviction, despite his political influence and the defense argument that, that her suicide attempt absolved him of guilt. That was his defense argument. Oh, she tried to kill herself, so what I did wasn't that bad. What? He was convicted of second-degree murder in November 1925 and sentenced to life in prison. Should have got more than that. So after that, he tried to get a pardon from the governor, who was a political ally. Again, it was steeped into the political system in the state of Indiana. Now, the governor said, nope. The governor was like, you went too far and you got caught. Nope. Because trust and believe, this ain't the first time he's done it, and he ain't the only one who did it. And in retaliation, Stevenson released a bunch of information about the names and illegal activity of a bunch of Indiana politicians who were on the Klan's payroll, who were a part of the Klan. So again, doesn't that sound familiar? When the white supremacists start getting upset with each other and they start turning on each other, we're seeing it. And the political fallout. Investigation, the ensuing newspaper investigation won a Pulitzer Prize and resulted in a wave of indictments against high-ranking officials. Again, now we understand, I mean, we should have been understanding why media, actual reporters, investigative reporting is now obsolete, is now a thing of the past. Because investigating reporting actually helped serve justice and help expose things like this. Know and believe that they have looked at all of this for decades and know what to do. And so we're seeing the game plan play out right now. If y'all don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Go on deeper. So this was the man who was running the Ku Klux Klan in Indiana. And this is the foundation of what the Ku Klux Klan was about in general, but I'm focused on Indiana because that is the state in which my brother was unalived. Or I'll say lost his life because, of course, the official ruling was accidental death. Now, how you can accidentally die drowning in a swimming area filled with people and families all around, I don't know how that can be. But again, Knox, Indiana is where the campground was. And this was what was happening, this Ku Klux Klan march in Knox, Indiana, where it was very prominent in Indiana in the whole state, large numbers, and they had a psycho that was running it. Now I'm blending time periods because he was in the 1920s. My brother was there and passed in 1969, but that's not that far of a difference in terms of time, but it just helps you to understand the root of what we're talking about. The energy, the culture, the accepted behavior, the environment of Indiana, and specifically Knox, Indiana. This picture of the Klan's walk wasn't from 1920. This is more like a 60s or 70s type of picture. So this was current during the time that my family was on vacation for the 4th of July in Knox, Indiana. This is the environment. This was the energy. This was the, quite possibly, some of these very people were there at that campground at that time. And it's 4th of July too, you know. So that's what was happening then. And then when I said, okay, well, Knox, Indiana, what y'all got going on? And look at the city of Knox. And of course, I'm always look because from Ku Klux Klan, the next jump over is always police department. If y'all don't understand that now, you better understand so that you know how to protect yourself. So I just said, what does that look like? And everything about, you know what it's giving. and they say, have submit a submit an anonymous tip. So I was like, okay, gun permits. What y'all talking about with gun permits in city of Knox, Stark County, that's looking real, still Ku Klux Klanny. Oh, I can get a lifetime permit for the state for $60 or $75 if I don't have a current permit for a lifetime. $75 to get a gun permit. It don't even take that much. I guess you can go in anytime from 8 to 4 and go get to and apply for your gun permit. Don't even cost you $100. Things like this just tell me about the culture of a place, the backbone of a place, and what they are like and who they are. And this little boy swimming on vacation with his family, and we still don't know what happened to him at that lake, in that pond. And I swear I wish I could find the picture that I was looking at earlier that is actually of the pond. I'm gonna try one more time and then I'll just let it go, y'all. Or maybe it's here from visitors. No. So the other thing I want to talk about in light of this, though, because there is so much happening in the world right now that is very reminiscent of this, that I found it. That is the pond. That is the pond. Mm, 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 mm. So, my brother, Bobby Charles Williams, born October 25th, 1957, and departed this life on Friday, July 4th, 1969. Was he even quite 12 yet? I'm trying to do the math. Mm, mm. So the question is, I have no evidence, obviously. I have no any records, any evidence, any eyewitnesses, anything. It's long gone. And we are in a political climate nationally, and just looking at things, I don't foresee anyone in that community wanting to help and see and understand and bring truth to light. But I know what I see, and I know the pain that my family was in, and that was been our a key part of all of the karmic paths that I've talked about. Meaning, this was an event. Losing my brother in this way, in this on this date, July 4th, was a meaningful event that changed the lives of everyone in my family, even me before I even got here. That loss, that sacrifice is part of what called me through. My mother's weeping, my father's weeping. And there was, to be clear, there was so much guilt and shame and anger and bitterness and so much coming from that event, from that experience, from that loss. And it's unconceivable. And I am convinced that a lot of all my and my sister's health conditions stem from that trauma. If you understand how trauma works in the body, that experience, that loss, that visual, that whole time period, because it wasn't even just what happened on that date, and the I don't know how they were treated. I don't know how they were um, spoken to. I know nobody got therapy. Everything that happened on July 4th, and then by July 8th, he's having a funeral. No one got over that. No one healed from that. And I saw that and felt that and understood that growing up. And I even had my own traumas related to it, even though I wasn't there and I didn't know him. I felt unworthy to be alive because, in my mind as a child, and I talk about this in my first book, in my mind as a child, to be alive meant that he died so that I could get here, even though I know now that it wasn't that, but internally, emotionally, it felt like that. And in many ways, again, they weren't trying to replace him, but in some ways they were trying to replace him. At least my father was. My mother was like, my father wanted me to be a boy, and my mother was like, please let this be a girl. She would tell me the prayers that she prayed for me to be a girl. And yay, I'm a girl. But I wanted to mention that piece of it because after there's so many black men, black boys, people that are losing their lives right now to white supremacy, always have, but it's happening. Understanding that that pain does not just resolve, and go away for the family, for those left behind, and that that trauma continues to live within them and continues to circulate. It's an energy and it continues to circulate. I happen to be the one in our family that came to stop it. And I don't say that like popping my collar. That's why I've been through so many things. In many ways, it was I was what my assignment is was prayed into existence. And the Ebo was my brother. The Ebo being the sacrifice. So whenever I feel like I'm unworthy, or I don't have a purpose, or things can't work out, or whatever those depressive thoughts are, I remember this little boy who came before me. And every time I do my ancestral prayers, I thank him for his sacrifice, for his love, for his protection, for his blessings. I thank him. I thank him every chance I get. And I thank my mother for birthing him, for continuing to be a mother, for carrying me, birthing me while still mourning her son. I thank her. What kind of strength does that require to keep raising your children while mourning the loss, the sudden, unexpected loss of your only son? And trust and believe and understand, my parents are both from Mississippi. They left Mississippi the same year Emmett Till was murdered. They are very aware of what white supremacy looks like. They're very aware. They were very aware, but also knew that they had little to no recourse. And I know my father, I'm sure he wanted to go and wreak havoc on everybody, but that just would have resulted in more death. And I know my mother probably had to really hold him back. I've seen her have to hold him back from situations. I can only imagine what it was like during those times. And so I don't know if I have really too much else to say. I've probably been talking a lot longer than I intended to. How long has it been? Let's see. Yep, I thought this was going to be 20 minutes, 44. So we're going to wrap it up here. This is just my Ori, my higher self. Part of my soul's assignment was like, we need to talk about this. This is the month he was born. This is the month my mother was born. This is the month I was reborn. And it is Hoodoo Heritage Month. So I'm giving thanks, I'm giving honor to my ancestors, and I'm giving thanks and giving honor to my brother who would have been 68 years old this month. He would have been 68 years old. robbed of an entire life, more cousins. And with that, I'm going to again wrap this on up. And I give thanks to Bobby Charles Williams for his life, for his love, for his sacrifice. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and know, I'm talking to my Black folks, we still in this. We still in this fight for our freedom. Let's do this. I appreciate y'all. Take good care of you. Peace.